Hello there. My name is Quentin Russell. I am the content marketing specialist here at Doc365. And today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the benefits of using Office 365 enterprise solutions in your business. So to start with today, here's what we're going to be talking about throughout this webinar. So first of all, we're going to be covering Doc365, who we are, what we do. After that, we will jump into the webinar. So first off, we're going to start out by talking about the benefits of building enterprise tools in Office 365. So what you're really going to get out of it, the tangible benefits immediately. After that, we'll cover the Office 365 software as a service solutions versus other software as a service solutions. So basically why Office 365 SaaS solutions are going to benefit your company more than going out and getting custom built SaaS solutions. And then finally, we're going to end things with what you should be looking for in a SaaS provider. So specific qualities and activities that they do that indicate that they know what they're doing, that they understand Office 365, and that they're going to be able to build effective enterprise productivity tools for you using your Office 365 subscription. At the end, we will also be doing a question and answer session. So the way we're going to handle that is throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I will then respond to them at the end, go through them in the order that they were posted. If there's anything I cannot answer during that time, I will make sure to send it out alongside the webinar recording, which I will be sending out later today. With that said, let's jump into things. So who are we? We're Doc365. We're a company located in Jacksonville, Florida. We have over 17 years of experience working with SharePoint, Office 365, and other Microsoft platforms to deliver exceptional productivity solutions. We've worked with a wide range of companies in a variety of industries to implement a diverse array of SharePoint productivity tools. So we work on things like intranet portals, contract management systems, CRM solutions. We've recently launched a SafePoint safety management system. We also do employee onboarding, asset management, board meeting management. You can find all of that on our website at mydoc365.com if you're interested in any of those. We'd love to schedule time to talk to you about those, potentially hold a free demo to show you how they can really benefit you in a more detailed, specific manner. With that said, so jumping into the webinar, because I know that's why you guys are here. So what are the benefits of building enterprise tools in Office 365? Well, primarily there are 4 primary benefits that you really need to be looking at and thinking about. So the first one is the ease and use of training. So it's going to be easier to get people to use it, get people trained in how to use it. You're going to have more flexibility than any other SaaS solution. Additionally, you're going to have more tool integrations. This is something that we'll go into more specifically. And then it's probably going to be more secure and reliable than any other SaaS solution out there. So again, we'll touch on that in a few minutes. So in terms of the ease of use and training, I don't, at its base level, getting into it, Microsoft Office 365 is actually incredibly easy to learn how to use. Most people have plenty of experience using it. It's been in schools, specifically using the primary Word programs. So like, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. All of these have been used in schools since the early 2000s. Most everyone has, at least who is going to be working in an enterprise setting, it has experience using Microsoft Office tools. So basically, the way that Office 365 SaaS providers, one of the big benefits of them is that they're just taking what you're already using. They're taking the software that your company already knows how to use, and instead of adding in new features that you then have to go in and learn, they're extending the usability of your Office 365 tenant. Because one thing that really sets apart Office 365 SaaS solutions as opposed to other SaaS solutions is that so they take your SharePoint tenant and they build out functionality inside of it. So as opposed to building out a new feature, you having to log in, download something on your computer, they take your SharePoint and they just kind of build out new sites, configure existing sites, modify your document libraries, get everything set up to accommodate that tool, especially, and then deploy it into your system. And so it's not actually going to be that, and because of that, it's not actually going to be that difficult to train people in how to use that. Because again, you're just taking something that your users, your employees are already using and just adding an extra layer of functionality to it. So moving on to flexibility. So this is a big one. Basically, at the higher levels of use, Office 365 and SharePoint Online offer an extremely rich array of tools and features and functions. If you know what you're doing in a SharePoint environment, you can wholly customize it so it looks completely different from just out of the box options. And you're not even technically leaving the out of the box options because you're just using the features and settings that are within the SharePoint environment. However, that generally tends to take a lot of time. Learning what you need to do, learning the features, learning the specific ways to customize SharePoint and Office 365 to match what you're doing. It can take a year to even just get into the intermediate level of that. And then as things get higher and higher, as things get more and more complex, it just takes more and more time, and you have to spend more time customizing your environment. You have to spend more time fine tuning and tweaking things. And really, you don't have time for that. One second. I apologize. I just have to deal with. All right. I'd really like to apologize. My dog is not exactly being. He is very jealous for attention. So I apologize for that. But essentially, one of the ways you really have to think about that is so where was I at? Oh yeah, so the time it takes to really get the flexible SharePoint environment that works for you. That's why it's oftentimes you can bring in someone to take care of that full time, but that's a massive investment. I mean, hiring a SharePoint expert can be anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 a year. Meanwhile, you opt to use an Office 365 SaaS solution, something that modifies your SharePoint environment and fixes it and upgrades it. Generally, that's only going to run you anywhere between $5 to $10,000, a year, depending on what solutions you're working with, what you're trying to do, what level of customization you're offering. So it's definitely an affordability thing. But we'll kind of touch on that in a bit. But essentially, you're able to get that flexible environment for a cheaper cost and sooner, because deployment's only going to take you like 5 to 6 weeks as opposed to 6 to 7 months to fully customize an environment to your specifications by just having one person do it. So you can get everything you need without having to, without the huge upfront cost of developing it yourself. Moving on to tool integrations. So the thing is that Microsoft Office 365 and SharePoint Online offer a large variety of tool integrations. So these include things like DocuSign, HubSpot, Salesforce, and more. You can have all of these tied into your SharePoint environment. So basically, an Office 365 SaaS provider will be able to integrate all of your tools into your SharePoint environment so you can work from one central platform. So you're not having to jump around and say, okay, I want to do this here, I need this login, I need to remember these 5 passwords for these different programs. Instead, you can take all of the tools you're using, have them in that one platform. So not only are you able to, that basically you're saving time, because you're not having to jump around. You're not having to run into any issues with having to log out, log back in, but you're also cutting down on the amount of interruptions that can come up in the process. Because if there's one thing that interrupts business processes more than anything, it's human error. So if you can basically eliminate a lot of that, get rid of any place where human error can jump in, such as say manually entering information from one platform and putting it into another, and instead just having everything seamlessly blend together, you can definitely save time, cut down on problematic situations, and also potentially just make sure that no one's confused. So if someone says, okay, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, and then it goes here, and then it's supposed to go there, but I don't know where it's supposed to go after that. Having everything integrated into one platform, having everything built out with automated workflows within SharePoint means that it just kind of takes over that for you and tracks everything from start to finish. So while maybe people don't exactly know every step of the process, the system can step in and take over that for them and move everything throughout the different enterprise tools that you're using. So moving on to scalability, to security and reliability. So this is a big one. So unlike other SaaS providers who, if they're building out an original system, they're storing all of their data, all of your data in their servers. And while that is the case with Office 365 and SharePoint, you can be darn sure that Microsoft is going to have far better security systems, far better firewalls, much better data security than any other SaaS provider out there, except for maybe Google. Generally, you don't have to be concerned about your ability to access the platform or your data, because Office 365 is just incredibly reliable. It's generally always up. If something is down, it's not a localized issue. It's probably that Microsoft is down just all across the country. And if that's the case, well, we haven't really seen anything like that yet, but it would generally be something kind of catastrophic, and it's generally an issue that's not going to just be affecting you. So that is one of the big things that you get the same level of features and operative ability that that original SaaS system would provide, but you're getting it in the security and framework of Office 365. So now that we've kind of covered the main benefits, let's look at why, at the specific, what Office 365 SaaS solutions have over generic, not generic, but custom SaaS solutions. So the first thing that you're going to get is you're going to get a faster deployment time. It's also going to be more affordable. It's generally going to scale better with your organization. It's going to offer you more control, and it's generally going to be more flexible. So jumping into that, faster deployment. It generally takes less time to configure an existing SharePoint online tenant than it is to build out a custom SaaS solution. So if you were to take two intranet portals, say a SharePoint-based intranet portal and then a custom intranet portal, a custom intranet portal is probably going to run you a deployment time of anywhere up to 3 months. A SharePoint intranet portal is going to be ready in about maybe 4 to 6 weeks, so less than a month. Or a little, between, just around a month. Because, you're with a custom SaaS solution, while they have their internal framework and the templates that they build from internally, they're still having to configure everything to your needs. There's no real existing framework there. They're having to take everything that you're saying to them and code everything, and it can be a painful, laborious process where things can go wrong. With an Office 365 SaaS provider, they're working within SharePoint's framework. They're building everything using the Lego blocks, essentially, that SharePoint offers, because I think a really good way to think about SharePoint and Office 365 is that it's essentially a Lego set for your a productivity Lego set for your organization. So Microsoft provides a lot of tools and features that people can put together to build out, nice looking builds and designs. Generally, users who are just starting out are going to be working directly from the little booklet that comes with the Lego set. So, everything's going to kind of look samey. And then as you get more and more skilled, as you understand more about the design process, how the individual Legos fit together over time, you generally get to build bigger and more complex and intricate builds and constructs. And the thing is it's a lot faster to build something with Legos than it is to build with something like, say, an erector set, which is what I would consider a custom SaaS solution. So while generally a custom SaaS solution is going to be you know, there is going to be a certain level of customization that you a certain amount of nitty gritty customization, because generally with Lego builds, everything kind of turns out, while you can get differential Lego builds, at the end of the day, it's still just Legos. With a custom SaaS solution, you're machining everything, putting things together in individual, unique ways. The nitty gritty is going to be different, but it takes a lot longer to do that. And it's going to interrupt more of your business processes to get deployed. And at the end of the day, it's just going to take more time. So basically, working with SharePoint, you're going to have that faster deployment. You're going to get things done sooner, and you're going to be able to directly benefit from what you're paying for much faster, and get a return on investment sooner rather than later. Another thing is that it's more affordable. Because you're building with Legos, because you're building with something that you already have, they're not having to maintain a custom framework on their end. They're not having to, an Office 365 SaaS provider isn't having to pay to maintain servers. They're not having to pay for security. They're not having to pay for a lot of things that custom SaaS providers are having to pay for. So that extends over to you in terms of savings. Generally, if you are, and even if you have a Office 365 SaaS solution that is the same price as, say, a custom SaaS solution, you're probably going to be getting more out of the Office 365 solution, because they have less of that development cost, because they have lower maintenance fees. They're able to spend more time building out a more functional, powerful system. And so basically, at the end of the day, you're just going to spend less on an Office 365 SaaS solution. I really can't, that's just one of those things where it's kind of the name's on the box. But moving on to scalability. So basically, Microsoft Office 365 is probably one of the most scalable platforms out there. I'd say the only one that's maybe even slightly more scalable is Google Workspace. But Google Workspace is much harder to customize. You're not really able to get the same level of functionality and control that you have with Office 365. Because if I remember correctly, Office 365, you're capped at somewhere around 300 users, which isn't much of a concern for most businesses. So generally, you can, with an Office 365 SaaS solution, you're just able to piggyback on the inherent scalability of Microsoft Office and Office 365. The way it works is so that when you add a user to your Active Directory in Office 365, it automatically adds that new user to your existing framework, or at least that's how it's set up with most Office 365 SaaS solutions. So you don't have to go in and configure a user with specific settings multiple times. So you set them up in your Active Directory and then you go set them up in the solution. Instead, once you set them up in the Active Directory, give them the appropriate settings, permissions, and groups. Everything is ported over into your various different Office 365 solutions that you're using. This definitely differs from, say, custom SaaS providers who you might have to reach out to them every time you want to add a new user. You have to go through a lengthy training process, and it can take, weeks for them to be able to get started, as opposed to Office 365, where, as I was saying previously, most people have experience with Microsoft products. Most people are able to navigate that pretty simply. They can pretty much just jump in, get minimal training, and be ready to go. Another thing that you get with Office 365 SaaS solutions over custom SaaS solutions is that you have more control over your data. Because it's built using your SharePoint tenant, all of the data is normally accessible. So you're not going to run into any issues like with, say, Salesforce, where if you don't get your data out by a specific period of time, Salesforce keeps that data. Instead, it's in your Office 365 tenant. It's yours if you ever decide to stop using the Office 365 SaaS providers or services. They're not going to hold your data hostage. Additionally, you will be able to customize your SaaS solution. You're generally going to be able to make minute changes here and there, and even larger changes, because again, it's your SharePoint tenant. You still have full control over it. You still have all of the same access that you did before. So if you need to make any front end changes, if you need to make any alterations that are outside of your service agreement, you'll be able to just do that. you just, so you like, you don't have to ask permission. You don't, I mean, you can still check in and say, is this going to screw everything up? But you don't have to go in and say, okay, I don't like this. Let's get rid of it. And then you delete it and suddenly you're violating the terms of your service agreement. Instead, you're just, able to make the changes, able to do what you want in there, and be able to, with a lot of that can happen with minimal interruption. And then finally, you have greater flexibility with Office 365 SaaS solutions. So it's an incredibly flexible, Office 365 in general is just a very flexible platform. And basically a SaaS provider can make alterations to the software that they're building in Office 365 much easier than, say, a custom SaaS solution. Even if you need a custom module built out, that is outside of the initial SaaS provider's package, their solution, it'll take less time because they're just using the SharePoint building blocks as opposed to having to custom code something that might also be outside that custom SaaS provider's wheelhouse. So essentially, you can rest easy knowing that your SaaS solutions built in Office 365 are going to more accurately reflect the work that you're doing, as opposed to, say, a custom SaaS provider who is building something based off of, not necessarily based around your needs, but based around what they're able to do and their capacity. Basically, think about it like a good way to think about it is with custom SaaS providers, the floor for what they can do is lower, is higher. So they're not able to do as much because it costs more. It can take more time to develop, but they do have a higher ceiling for what they can do because they can get, they own the code, they have the source code, so they can make massive alterations, but again, that's going to take more time and cost more money. Meanwhile, Microsoft Office 365 and solutions built in that are going to have that lower floor. You can get more for get more for what you're paying for. And then while the ceiling might not be as high, it's still pretty high. And generally, once you're at the level where you're going to be wanting more custom solutions, even more custom solutions than what an Office 365 SaaS provider can provide, your company is probably already large enough that you can just hire a team to develop it internally. In which case, you shouldn't be going with a SaaS provider. But for mid-sized companies, an Office 365 SaaS, like if you're already using Office 365, someone who builds SaaS solutions in Office 365 is going to be the best bet for you, especially because a lot of custom solutions, while they can integrate with Office 365, they don't integrate very well. There's no real good way to bridge the gap between a lot of those. So with that kind of said, if you are looking for an Office 365 SaaS provider, here are the 3 things that you really need to think about when evaluating them and their solution. And that is, what is their expertise? What kind of support do they offer? And, what is the design of their systems? So kind of going into that, with expertise, one thing that you need to look at is, who they are and what kind of experience do they have with Office 365? How long have they been working with Microsoft systems? Are they Microsoft Gold certified? Do they have a blog? Do they provide educational resources for people on how to use SharePoint? Do they exist in the SharePoint community? Do they try to educate other people? Do they display any form of technical mastery of just the base system outside their systems? That's pretty important to think about. That's pretty important to look at, because that indicates that not only do they internally understand it, but their public facing aspects, so their marketing team, their sales team, they understand the SaaS, they understand the systems, they understand what the systems are built on. Because if they are able to explain it internally, have everyone know what they're talking about, have people understand it, then you know for a fact that if they're able to explain it internally, they'll be able to explain it externally to you, and not only help you understand why you need an Office 365 SaaS solution, but also potentially convince any of the shareholders, any of the decision makers in your company who aren't quite sure, or are maybe on the fence about it. They'll be able to explain it to them, talk to them about it, help them understand. Moving on to support. So do they offer support for their platform? Because while Office 365 is generally pretty error-free, there's not a lot of issues with it, issues are still going to come up. Users will make mistakes. Problems are going to happen. So do they offer support? And is the support that they offer unlimited? Or do you get it on a limited capacity and or have to pay for it? And then once you get that support, how skilled is the support that they provide? Does their support team understand just their system itself, or do they understand the Office 365 program as a whole? So are they able to help you with not just issues pertaining to their system, but resolve issues with your Office 365 and SharePoint tenants? So yeah, those are definitely things that you need to keep in mind, because again, things are going to go wrong. People make mistakes, things are going to break. And then finally, what is the design of their system? So what does it look like? Because at the end of the day, I've seen people who've built out SharePoint tenants that run really well. They're like rocket ships. They get you from point A to point B really quickly, but they don't look pretty. They don't look good. People don't want to use them. Generally, you want to find an Office 365 SaaS provider who builds out a program that looks good, is built around, they offer custom branding, especially. That's a big one. So if they say work with your team to modify your tools to match your colors, your style, your voice, everything that you are as a company. Basically, a good rule of thumb is, make it so that not only does it run well, but that it should also look great as it does, as it runs. So that is everything that I kind of have to say about, Office 365 SaaS solutions versus custom SaaS solutions. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. In the meantime, I'd like to talk to you guys about any upcoming webinars that we have. So next week, we will be doing the next part of our SharePoint Basics series. We'll be doing it on project sites. So our SharePoint Basics series is every second Tuesday of the month, we cover a SharePoint topic, break it down, show you how to build out and use various aspects of SharePoint, one topic at a time. Next week, we'll be focusing on project sites. After that, on March 16th, we'll be doing a webinar on how to avoid common vendor management problems. So, how these come up, how to address them, how to make sure they don't come up in the future. After that, on March 23rd, we'll be doing a webinar on how AI is set to revolutionize contract lifecycle management. So that's a big topic that's coming up. A lot of contract management providers are beginning to add artificial intelligence to their solutions. So really talking about how it can help, how it can revolutionize it, and what things are going to look like with with a highly automated, intelligent contract lifecycle management system. And then finally, on March 30th, we'll be covering important employee data you should be tracking. So internal KPIs that you should be taking a look at as you measure their performance, how they're doing, their engagement, and the work that they're doing. We do a webinar every week, so every Tuesday at 11 a.m. So feel free to tune in to see what we're doing every week. We look forward to seeing you there. Again, this has been Quentin Russell with Doc365. This has been, our webinar today. If you ever want to contact us, our phone number is 904-309-9970. Our email address is info@mydoc365.com. If you have any questions for me, my email is qrussell@mydoc365.com. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at Doc365. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.